Of course, sitting behind me, there's 100 years of Homestake and SURF history right here, more than that we're going to just skim the surface of tonight. My name's Mike Ray. I'm a science communicator here at SURF, and I'll just be the moderator tonight, running the microphone around for your questions as soon as we get going. The first thing we always start with our deeper talks, first is to welcome you all this beautiful evening, but is a thank you to the sponsors, the folks who bring us the food and, of course, the beer. And to thank for the wonderful event this evening, our sponsors, Tracy Kerwin. I want to welcome the new director of the SURF Foundation to the stage to give a thank you to our sponsors.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. Thank you, Dan and Tom. So, my name is Tracy Kerwin. I am the new foundation director for SURF. And it is truly my pleasure to be part of this team, and I think really an honor to be able to go out and garner support for a mission that not only supports science and discovery, but also to promote learning across generations. And that is why we host talks like this, is to promote learning across the generations. So I am just as excited as you are to hear from Dan and Tom about this living history, about this site. But before we do that, I would like to recognize our supporters, our sponsors, who are helping to make tonight possible. So please join me in thanking Edward Jones, financial advisor, Chris Mitchell, who has supported us, RCS Construction, Charles and Jolene Lichtenwaller, and last but certainly not least, our friends at Crow Peak Brewing Company. Mark Schwartz is here tonight along with his team, Izzy and Colton, and I'd like to maybe invite Izzy and Colton to the microphone just to say a few words.
Hi, I'm Izzy Drum. I am the Director of Operations at Crow Peak. And this is Colton. He's one of our partners, and he is also our head of sales. So we just want to say thank you to SURF and to Deep Talks. We have sponsored for about 10 years now, and Deep Talks is something that it's really close to our hearts, and we love hearing about all of the research going on here, and it's something that we're really passionate about. It's a very community-oriented thing, and that's really what we're passionate about at Crow Peak. So we try to do our best to support as much as we can. And we thank all of you as well for supporting us here, drinking our beer and hopefully enjoying it. And we hope to see you all at our tap room in Spearfish.
Yeah, like she said, I'm one of the new partners at Crow Peak. I started on this about 4 or 5 months ago. I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to do this. I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be a part of this community. Appreciate you guys for all your support over the years, and look forward to the coming years, some new stuff we're doing, and thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. It's great to meet you all. Yeah.
All right, I just have a couple parting words. There are many ways to show your support and get involved with the SURF's mission here. So if you're interested, there is a donation box at the back of the room. I think we can have somebody pointing to that over there. But if you're online, you can also access us through the giving pages at the top of the menu bar. So thank you everyone for being here tonight, and we're pleased to be such an integral part of this community. Thank you to Crow Peak again, and to all of our other sponsors. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Mike.
Thanks so much, Tracy. We appreciate that and the support of the foundation. I should mention, this is a gold record crowd, which is not surprising, a gold medal crowd. This is, we think, the largest Deep Talks we've ever had. So kudos to all of you. Congratulations to the audience for being here for this wonderful event. And I want to give a little caveat that, again, with the more than 100 years of history, it is going to be really hard to put the awesome stories that they have in an hour. That's what we're going to try and do. And so tonight, I know, we're just going to skim the surface of this incredible history. What we hope you take away from this is a respect for that long history of labor that made the underground lab that we have today possible, and the extension of that history into the SURF operations today. So if you get a chance, say hi to your fellow or your local Homestake miner and talk to them and get to know them a little bit, because this history is really important to remember for all of us. And with that, I'm going to be quiet and ask my first question, then I'm going to turn the questions over to you. And the question I want to ask for both Dan and Tom is tell us about your first day at Homestake and the things you remember back then, and then also, if you can, in just a nutshell, put into a synopsis all the things you did during your history at Homestake and SURF, because you have this wide breadth of work you've done. So I don't know, who wants to start? You want to flip a coin?
We kind of talked it over, and
Okay.
I'll start out and stuff.
Okay, I'll let you go. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for coming. I'd like to reflect back in the years at Homestake. I wouldn't be here, nor would I know what I know without the people that I worked with. It was such a blessing to have worked at Homestake and the Sanford lab the time that I did, and it was the people that put up with me and trained me and helped me make it to this point. So thank you very much for those of you that are here tonight that I've worked with, and it helped me. But going back to the first day of Homestake, it kind of starts out, I graduated from high school in '71, and Homestake at the time would hire Homestake students to work in the summer. My folks weren't Homestake workers, so I had put an application in. I was actually working for the city of Lead, sweeping streets, the old way. And I got a call that I could go to work for Homestake, so I started out that summer. Because I was the last one hired, I got to help clean toilets, shower stalls, and work graveyard shifts at the check-in doors at night. Then I went to school over at BH that fall, and I really wasn't a very good student. And why would I go through all that when I could make $2 an hour at Homestake? So in March, you could go, well, when you turned 19, you could go to work full-time, as long as you didn't have more than 9 credit hours. So I cut back my credit hours in the second semester. On my 19th birthday, on March 1st, I walked down to the employment office, which was uptown at the Loft at that time. And I walked in and said I wanted to apply, and they said, "You want to start tonight?" I says, "Not really, it's my birthday." So they said, "Well, come back when you're ready." So 2 weeks later, on the 14th of March, I went in, and same thing. "You want to start tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess so." So filled out the paperwork. Well, then you walk down the street to the Homestake Hospital, went in there where you said, "I'm a new hire," and they said, "Well, follow the yellow line." And so you followed, and you went into a doctor, and they checked you and said, "Yeah, your heart's beating, you can go to work." So and then you went across the street and got your glasses tested, because they would provide safety glasses. Then they usually had a watchman or somebody hauling you around. So at that point, we went up the street to a general clothing store called Anderson's, and they issued you your rubber boots, your bib overalls, a bluish shirt, your rubber and canvas gloves, and your hard hat. So then you went there, and I got taken up to the Yates Safety Building, which is now the Education Outreach. Well, the Education Outreach is on the top floor, but the bottom 2 floors were the locker rooms. So we went down, and the dry man, the custodian, was told, "Hey, this guy needs a couple of lockers. You had one for your clean clothes and one for your dirty clothes." And I'm just scared to death, because I didn't know what I was getting into, but signed a locker. He said, "Be back by 6 o'clock. And went down to the ramp, which is where you get ready to get on the cage. And he said, "Well, your boss will be right here," and my boss was Elmer Nichols. And so I came back that night, got my clothes on, went down, and of course I stand out like a sore thumb, because I've got all brand new clothes. And that's when the horseplay and the teasing starts. New guy, and then, "Oh, that guy's a lifer." And that was one of the worst things that they could accuse you of, as being a lifer. Guess what? I was a lifer. So I met my boss, and I had my lunch bucket, and he says, "Give your lunch bucket to this guy, because you're going to follow me." And I said, "No, I'll carry it." He says, "No, you're going to go with me. I want you to leave your bucket with him." And I said, "No, I know what happens to your lunch buckets around here." And I got my boss mad at me the first night. He says, "Give your bucket to that guy, you're going with me." So I went with him and followed him, and caught the cage and went down underground. So that was my first day, and Tom's gonna kind of take it from where he did the same thing, only 2 years, 3 years before me.
Right. I started in November of 1969. Diane and I had just been married in August, and we weren't quite making it on what we were making it on. So, again, you know, the wages were good. It was under $2 at that time, but still plenty. And similar story, both of us have kind of compared notes to that. But for me, before we go underground with my little talk on that is, I really want to dedicate this to my wife, Diana, and my 2 daughters, Michelle and Jennifer, and my grandchildren, 2 of which can't be here tonight, but my grandson Jackson is here. So, you know, it's all about family. It's all about our Homestake family, our SURF family. And I also want to recognize all the miners and the underground construction workers that make this happen day in and day out. You know, it's kind of like Disney World. You got all the rides on top, but underneath Disney World is a whole craft of people keeping it operating. And especially those who gave the utmost and the all, of which there's a dedicated plaques out around here that you can look at those miners who, in a way, sacrificed their life so we could be here enjoying ourselves tonight at this mine site. And, of course, all of those who were injured as well. And I want to make a special honoring of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota nations, as we have taken over 44 million ounces of gold or more out of these sacred Pahasapa Black Hills. We have the honor and privilege now in this generation to give back. And mining is still going on right now as we sit here. And it's mining of education, outreach, and science. And a whole new set of opportunities are arising out of this time in this place. And the Homestake site is just known for that innovation. It is indeed a sacred place. And of course, I want to thank Homestake Mining Company and Barrick Gold, as well as the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority, the state of South Dakota, and T. Denny Sanford, who gave the seed money, good grief, 2006, 2007. And appreciation for the Sanford Lab, Homestake Visitor Center, and Homestake Adams Research Cultural Center, who I'm working with as well. So, back to the ramp. I too, bib overalls, bright shiny boots, and a crescent wrench that I barely knew how to operate. And we got on the cage, but I didn't go with the boss. My boss, Tom Castor, said, "You go with him." And him was, and believe it or not, this him is still alive with us today. Ray Metzger. He was the first guy that I went underground with. I thought he was an old guy then. And I've still talked with Ray from time to time. Once in a while we'll see him at VFW Hamburger Night, and it just thrills me to talk to him about things. And anyway, we got on the cage and with his mine partner, the 3 of us, and we went down the Yates cage, and what a ride. I mean, we're talking 2,500 feet per minute. And of course, you don't just start out that way, but within a few minutes, or a few seconds actually, you're 2,500 feet per minute. So you go from the Yates top to the 4850 in a couple of minutes. And I mean, it's just, you can see the lights from the station flashing by as you go. It's just amazing. And I was thrilled with that. I thought, this is awesome. And we got out on the 4850, and it's not like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, it's a big drift, a tunnel, a big drift. And we walk around the corner, and here's all these locomotives and man cars all lined up to pick up this cage load of 32 miners that were packed in a cage just like that. So when we're over, 32 of you get inside of that and see what that's like. And Dan's right, there was no horseplay. So we're on the 4850, and we get in this man car. I had no idea what I was doing. I got, scared, but amazed. And we took off, and we rode, and we rode, and we rode. And pretty soon, we stopped, and we got out. And my goodness, I think it was 15, 20 minutes, maybe more. We'd actually driven a little over a mile to the southeast to what is called number 4 winds. A winds is a shaft that goes from a point inside the mine to another point at the inside the mine. And at this time, 4 winds went to the 6800, which was the bottom of the mine at that time. They were still just developing the 6800. So now, of course, it's down to the 8000. But we got on number 4 winds, another cage about the same size, and we got off on the 6050 level. Again, I have no idea where I was at or what I was doing, but I was following Ray, and Ray was, come on, come on, come on. And the first thing we did was go back to this cutout, which eventually became an explosives magazine. They were just doing the infrastructure construction on the 6050 for the dumps. So we were real close to the station, and we went into this little cutout, and there were some boards laying there on a bin line block, a block of wood. And first thing they did is say, sit down, he said, and the 2 guys opened up their lunch bucket, had a cup of coffee, and then they turned their lights out. And I'm sitting there on this board, okay, I thought we were gonna go to work or something. And I turned my light out, and I just sat there for about maybe 5-10 minutes. Pretty soon they turned their lights on and said, come on, let's go to work. And we went around the corner, and we were building the dumps there around 4 winds. That was my first several weeks working there, laboring. And, in retrospect, we actually do the same thing, maybe not quite as overtly, but we have what's called toolbox talks, and it's a good thing. You're going from the surface to a deep part underground, and your whole world changes in just a matter of a few minutes. And it's a good thing, stop and relax, get used to your surroundings, and then you can go to work. So that was kind of my first day. And I'll tell you, I fell in love with the mine, and I'm still in love with it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you both. Could you give in just a quick nutshell, each of you, the many things that you did during your time, starting at Homestake and all the way extending to SURF?
Okay. Started out on the 4850 at the Yates, which was a major transfer level for supplies going around that level and then down. So I was mostly involved in transportation. I did a little bit of mining, but I didn't like it at all. And so I worked down there about 10, 11 months on running the locomotives. And like I said, I did a little bit of mining, but I didn't like it. But I got the opportunity to transfer into the hoist room as a trainee called a hoist oiler. So I was there learning the hoist, and there was, I think, 8 or 10 hoists to learn. So it took over a year to learn that. And because of the new guys, we were working 6 days a week. So one of the shifts that they started us on was you'd start out at graveyard, 11 to 7. So you'd go 2 days on graveyard. Then the third day you'd come out afternoon shift at 3 o'clock. So you'd have that short change. So you'd work 2 days on the afternoon shift, which you worked at 3 to 11. Then you got off, then you went graveyard for 2 shifts, 11 to 7. Then you got a day off. So by the time you got there after 6 days of work, you had Sunday off or whatever, and then you'd come right back to day shift. So the time off was pretty limited. I stayed in the hoist room, and to me, it was a really good job, clean and learning stuff, but I was more interested in the equipment, the hoist, than an operator. And in my history of work, I was never one of those guys that said, well, go ask Dan because he knows everything. I was never good at much anything, but I found a way to get through it. But the hoist operator job takes very special people that can do it every day, because you're either in panic or boring. And when I was operating, I was panicked, and when I wasn't, I was bored. So I got an opportunity to go work in the repair shop as a laborer, and I worked there, eventually got a chance to be an apprentice machinist, and so I was that, but again, it's really cool to make things. And I've got a couple of parts that I made when I was a machinist over here on the table, and I look at them now and I say, how did I make them? Because I'm not skilled enough for that, but I did. But again, we got one of the machinists I trained with out in the audience, and people like him took me under their wing and tried to train me, and I learned a lot from those kind of people. But I got into maintenance of the underground mining equipment, mostly a stope jumbo, which you could haul into the stopes and it would mine consistent. And I started out on that, and then it branched out to Homestake was shifting from jack legs, which is individual manual operation, to mechanized equipment. And I switched to the crew that maintained those, learning hydraulics, pneumatics, and I worked on that. Well, by 1980, I saw green grass down in Wichita, Kansas, so I quit Homestake against my family's best recommendations, and I went down there and got into industrial sales, and shortly within there, the company that I worked for went out of business. So then I had to switch to the new company, and they wanted me to be straight commission, and that didn't interest me at all, and I was anxious to come back here to the Black Hills. Wichita's really cool, they got neat people, and I got to see a lot of stuff, but these hills are I'm not able to get away from them. So the opportunity came back to be a hoist operator again. 1980, Homestake implemented mandatory drug testing for mine rescue people and hoist operators. All of a sudden, they needed a bunch of hoist operators. And I knew I could pass a drug test. So I came back, I was in the hoist room for 3 years, and again, I got back to where it was boring, and I started looking for other work, and I was able to transfer into the electrical department, which all the transportation underground is locomotives, rail locomotives, but they're powered by batteries. So Homestake was ahead of the curve on EV vehicles long before. So I worked taking care of batteries on the weekends. We didn't have automatic shutoffs, and they required to be watered. So I worked 5 years without ever having a weekend. But I was a low man on the totem pole. Well, then I was able to work my way into the repair shop for the locomotives, eventually becoming a lead man and then a planner scheduler. 1998, Homestake was already reducing staff, and I was one of 400 or something that got let go that first layoff in January 98. And it was like, oh great, now what do I do? Well, my history in batteries, I started my own business taking care of industrial batteries for power plants and computer centers. And that went real good for about 8-10 years, but I kept my fingers helping out with the lab as a volunteer, or well, at that time it was Barrick, as a volunteer, just helping out on different things. Well, the opportunity came, if you get a chance, there's a newspaper thing back there, but a bunch of us got together when the down select for what lab was going to be selected came in. There was a comment made where the shafts at the Homestake had caved in. So a group of us got together in what was called cooler cam. And a group of us voluntarily set up, and it was called cooler cam because the guy that decided to set up the technology for it went down to Walmart and got an igloo cooler, and we put a VCR and a battery pack in there, put cameras and lights on it, cut a hole in the cage, and then had a cable that dropped it down the H shaft, and we proved that the shaft had not caved in, and that cured that rumor. and stuff. So we continued with that kind of work. Then in, I think like Tom said, 2006, T. Denny Sanford gave his big donation, and the down select was to the Homestake Mine to return to become Sanford Lab. As I ran my own business, so to restart the hoists, I was hired along with some technicians that knew how to do it to restart the hoist. We started in the Ross, and it was very cold that time of year. There was no heat, and so we brought in propane tank heaters. And if anybody that uses propane knows if it gets real cold, it won't gas. We had a heck of a time heating the room enough, but we got the hoist started. Then they sent us over to the Yates. We started the Yates shaft. Well, then I was hired full-time to be operations surface foreman. Now, we had a pretty small crew at the time, so we had a general operations director, and then Jack Stratton was managing everything underground, and I was managing the workers on the surface. And that continued until we were starting to grow and the work assignments started to split. But I stuck with operations, where I was responsible for mobile equipment and facilities. And I retired last year as a facilities operations foreman. So,
But not really retired.
I work down here 2 days a week, and what a thrill.
We're fortunate for that.
Telling these stories, so,
We're fortunate for that.
yeah.
And Tom.
Wow. More, that's good. What's the question? I don't, it's hard to, I'll try, okay.
Thank you.
So I was laboring, and my next job was actually on the 5900 mucking, and I'm going to keep it clean, water ditch. The rest of you know what it is, and it's a P word. Okay? And I think everybody had an opportunity to do that. Cleaning up the sand from backfilling that got in the water drainage system. And I tried my hand at motoring, running an electric locomotive. And I really enjoyed that, and I became a motorman at number 4 winds levels, all the different levels, 5900 in particular. And eventually they needed a motorman on the 6800. Well, part of my hidden agenda was not so hidden. I was working straight nights full-time and going to school during the day at Black Hill State University. I don't think I slept for 10 or 15 years, but that's what you can do that when you're in your 20s and 30s. But I became a straight night locomotive operator on a 6800 for the highball drift crew that was drifting from number 4 winds to what would eventually become number 6 winds, the main deep level shaft that goes from the 4550 to the 8000. But we were only at basically 26 service rays. They were just turning the corner to head west. And there was another crew on the level that was driving what was called a cage raise from the bottom up, a conveyance shaft, small shaft that would take people between the 6800 and the 5900 at the time. And I hauled all their rock, and I would bring back all the supplies. And the 6800 being the deepest part of the mine and not ventilated, the only air that we had was from 4 winds. And it was a series of 30-ton air conditioning units we called coolers that would transfer the cool air back to where we were. It's extremely hot. You didn't start your day until you started sweating, and that was when you got off the cage. And it was miserably hot, but you adapt. And I remember early on when I was just getting started there, I was helping the highball drift crew get ready with their equipment. And Tom Castor, my boss at the time, we were at 26 service rays, and he said, hey, the highball drift crew need a Jim Crow. And I didn't know what a Jim Crow was. And he said, yeah, it's around the corner at 26 Herbert's good. And I thought, same with Dan, I was in trouble with my boss right away because I had no idea what a Jim Crow was, and I thought he was giving me kidding with me. So I argued with him, and finally, he basically took me by the nape of the neck and took me around the corner and said, that's a Jim Crow. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's an arc-shaped piece of tool that bends rail. It's a rail bender. And so I had to carry that heavy piece of tooling back to the drift crew, and I learned my lesson well. So lots of nicknames for lots of mining stuff, some of which I can repeat and some I can't. And I became a pretty good motorman hauling rock on the 6800. And I started going, again, I was going to school, and I met up with another guy that wanted to go to school too, and he'd heard that I was commuting back and forth, living here in Lead and going to school in the day. He said, hey, can I ride with you? And that's how I met Dale Leestra. Rest in peace, my friend. Dale and I were partners for many years underground after that. He was a borehole operator, and he picked me up as his partner, and I became a heavy equipment operator of a raise bore machine. We would drill holes, 12 1/4 inch, some smaller holes between levels, and then put a reamer bit on it and rotate and lift the reamer bit up under 25,000 PSI torque, huge machine. And we could drill up to 7-foot diameter holes for ventilation raises and ore pass raises. And I did that for a lot of years. A lot of things happened in between, but those were very formative years. And we had to do our own drill, blast, load, haul, dump when we had to mine out cutouts for sometimes to help with the machine area, and sometimes mine out for enough room to put the reamer bit on from the bottom up. And yeah, that was good work, good pay. I got to the point I was making around $15 an hour plus some contract pay, and in the early mid 1970s that was good. And Diane and I were able to buy a house and buy a car, and we had 2 children. Things were going well, and there became. Let me back up just a little bit. During that period in 1972, there was with the United Steelworkers of America, we went on strike to convince Homestake it was time to go to a 5-day week instead of the 6-day week, where we were working 6 days and 6 nights, Monday through Saturday. Of course, there were some other people working other shifts to cover the Sundays. And we did go on strike, and I couldn't make it on getting the pay to walk the picket line, so I went to work at Jeffrey City, Wyoming, and was a motorman there there were two mines there, Goose 1, Goose 2 in Jeffrey City, Wyoming. I was on the 400-foot level, and we were mining uranium. And while I was there, because I couldn't register for school for that next fall, I received my draft notice from Uncle Sam, greetings. And I was drafted into the United States Army. There was no internet, and you couldn't register for school at that time by mail. You had to be there. And it was really one of the best things that ever happened. I really had to do a lot of soul searching to see if I really wanted to be a soldier. And, that was near the end of the Vietnam era, Vietnam War, and I thought about being a conscientious objector, but I had to ask myself, what would you do for your wife and your babies? And I said, yeah, I would do whatever it took. And well, if you can do that for your wife and your children, how about your neighbor? Yeah. How about your community? How about your nation? And so I did. And I ended up in the Army Security Agency, which is a forerunner of the National Security Agency today. That branch is now a separate entity. At any rate, when I came back from the service, I went right back to borehole operating as if I'd never been gone. I was gone over 18 months, and I came back, and the guy said, "You've been on vacation, huh?" You know, so one thing about working in a mine year after year, year after year, there's a routine to it, and there's a sense of stability. And people did move around in the mine or agree on vacation, but odd feeling, I'll never forget that. And then in 1978, an opportunity came up for another job as Homestake was transitioning to more a different way of handling logistics and more modern communications, and even on the cutting edge of computers and electronic management. As I said, Homestake's always been innovative. The site is innovative. And so I bid on a job to work as a scheduler for Bob Burns. And I went from making those high wages and contract bonus to $16.17 an hour. And as I worked there, it was an office job, but you had to have the mine experience, and you had to have administrative experience, which I had both from the schooling and military and working in the mine. And that first year, in order to make ends meet, I bought one thing for the whole year for myself, and that was a pair of buckle overshoes so I could walk to work. Yeah, and I don't regret it at all. And I had many talks with Bob about, geez, Bob, I got to go back in the mine. And he asked me, where do you want to be when you're 55 or 60 years old? And I thought about it, and he said, just try it a little longer. Things will work out. And, you know, I have to thank him for that advice, and the people I worked with. And as it so happened, it opened up many opportunities for me. I became a planner, and I worked with the people like John Marks, who is a world-renowned ventilation engineer, became a very good friend of both Dan and I, and miss him to this day. John Marks made it possible for the underground mine to have deep level mining for the ventilation and refrigeration systems that he designed and helped build. John and I more than once would spend the weekends sorting pipe fittings on the 6950 level for the plant. I became his planner and logistics person for that. And then I became the planner for a lot of the deep level development, the finishing up of sinking six shaft, the extension of Four Winds down to the 7400, and big projects like that. It was an exciting time to be involved in that deep level development. Later I became a planner for Bob Varick, and Bob had the underground construction crew, which was really like a business within a business. There were about 300 in that group before the downsizing and the closure that did everything but the mining. To cover all of the haulage, all of the long hole diamond drilling, managed the movement of all of the long hole mining equipment, and all of the underground construction and maintenance, sand backfilling. I think we were 5 or 6 supervisors. I was the planner. Norma Tesh was the administrator with that group. So we were like a small business that within the business. And then when Homestake announced the downsizing, what, 98? Yeah, 1998. Well, I remember Diane and I were on vacation and coming in, and I called Dan and asked what's going on. He said, well, they're closing the mine, or getting ready to. And what a shock that was. And we came back, and they went from like 1,500 employees down to what I think around 300. And I was asked to stay on to help do the mine optimization and help organize a lot of that. And then I became the haulage foreman for moving all of the rock from all of the different levels. So we managed all of the rock to get it from the mining stopes and areas to the shaft. I didn't do the skipping. Jack Stratton, I think, was there for that. But I did have the crusher rooms. And then I also had the crusher room and the final moving of the rock from the open cut. They had finished mining, but they were still moving ore from the open cut to the mill in the pipe conveyor. And after that, I became the cleanup closure foreman and managed and supervised the crews that did all of the environmental cleanup closure of the underground and did all of the documentation for that. After that, I worked, had my own business, Gold Server Incorporated, and did environmental health and safety planning for the possibility for the site to become the preferred site for an underground laboratory, and wrote the first safety manual book, so thick it was reviewed by third-party OSHA and MSHA experts, and then went through the lawyers, and had to present that to the National Science Foundation in Washington, D.C., along with Greg King and others who went there, Kevin Lesko, some of you know that name, and we were chosen for the site, and I eventually became an employee for the state in the lab, and was in 1978 I joined Mine Rescue after a fire that they didn't let me go to work. I couldn't go to work, and I said, well, that'll never happen again. If I can't be part of the solution, I want, or part of the, how does that go? I want to be part of the solution if there's something going on. So that's what I did, and I've been involved in mine rescue since then. Still, that's where my heart is, and I got opportunity to work with some great people over the years, including Woody Hover, who's here, who was one of the mine rescue superintendents, and helped develop the mine rescue team for the lab. And then I worked with the environmental health and safety group after I didn't have enough initials behind my name. But I became a safety specialist and helped out writing policies and procedures and doing inspections and doing a lot of mentoring and training and guiding, and it was a good time. And I retired November 15th, 2024 from full-time, part-time, and here I am. So it took me 4 times. I retired 4 times before I finally, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it.
Thank you. Thank you both for that excellent history. I appreciate that. And Tom, you brought up something I think we should bring out, is that Homestake family and all the folks that are involved. I just want to ask anybody who worked at Homestake to raise your hand around the room. And so for the rest of us, if you get a chance to talk to some of these folks, there's a lot deeper history here, obviously. We're just skimming the surface. So get a chance to talk to some of these folks who worked at Homestake. That history is very important. But with that, I want to open it up to audience questions for the remainder of the time we have together. What questions do you have out there? What questions do you have for the Regan brothers here? I've got one right back here from Vince. I'm going to try and get here without causing the speakers to feedback and without breaking the television.
Yeah, my question is, what effect and how did it work when the Bureau of Mines was started? Because it seems like all the years growing up, there were 3 or 4 or 5 people killed a year. And then we went years, it seemed like, with no deaths in the mine. So, and I know you guys were involved with that. So what did you see that effect being?
I can start out if you want.
Excellent question.
Good question. When I was working in the shops, I was advised to be active with the union. And the part that I was interested in was the safety end of it. I became a assistant shop steward. And that was my first exposure to MSHA. I got sent out to Salt Lake for a week-long school, and it really imprinted on me safety, because the first year I was hired on at Homestake, there was 6 fatalities. So that level of death now would shut a business down instantly. So it wasn't that Homestake didn't care, it's just their methods sometimes didn't match. And as some of those that worked at Homestake, some of the people didn't understand the risks of where they were working. And so it became better as the years went on. And even though it was kind of a push me, pull you thing as far as what I was concerned, because then when MSHA would come in on quarterly basis, I would go with the inspectors and they would cite problems, and then we had the chance to either fix them right then or there could be a fine. It all depended and stuff. So with the change from Bureau of Mines to MSHA, it made a lot of difference. Of course, the Sunshine Mine disaster in '72, which I was working then underground, and we got a call, hey, the Sunshine Mine got a fire, and a lot of those people had worked at Homestake, and there was a few Homestake people on the site. So that really imprinted on the importance of self-rescuers and self-protection and escape ways and training and stuff. So maybe you can take it from there, Tom.
Yeah, very good. Exactly. It did transition from the Bureau of Mines, and the law was promulgated, I believe, in 1977 to become Mine Safety Health Administration. And one of the really unique things about it is when MSHA started writing their laws, their standards in place, they actually came to Homestake Mine and borrowed, got the Homestake Safety Manual and modeled the first set of rules after the Homestake safety rules that were already in place. In my collection, I have one of the first books that MSHA put out, and on the cover of it is a cartoon drawing of the Yates head frame. So Homestake has always been pushing to get better in every way, and that continues today. With environmental health and safety, it's never over. You're always looking for continuous improvement, and that certainly happened here at Homestake, including the things that Dan said. One of the most obvious things is every time anybody goes underground, they have to take what's called a self-rescuer with them, which in case there's carbon monoxide from a fire, they can breathe because it's a filter respirator that will take out the carbon monoxide. And I know SURF is also offers self-contained self-rescuers that also provide up to an hour's worth of oxygen as well. And so there's continuous improvement as we speak. And those all came really from that watershed moment in May of '71 when 97 miners lost their lives at the Sunshine Mine fire. And after that, I was on the borehole machine, and I had to pick up a partner. I was an operator by that time, and one of the man that I picked up was the son of Louis Goose, the Goose son-in-law of the Goose family, and he became my partner, and we had lots of talks about that. His father-in-law died in that mine fire, and so it's really all about the people, and it has gotten better and better. There were some fatalities in the 70s and 80s, and the last one was in 1991. Homestake ran from 91 until the site has not had a fatality to this day. And the current record with SURF, which although not regulated by MSHA today, many of the standards are Mine Safety Health Administration, especially in those areas that the OSHA construction standards and other standards don't have application for specifically hoists and shafts, and mine rescue is another one. Yeah.
The importance of that safety culture and keeping that alive can't be overexpressed. It's so important. What other questions do we have? I've got one from Bryce right back here.
Quick one here, both of you, and it's a brief question. What is your favorite level and why?
Well, I'll go back to the 4850. That's where I started. And, you know, when I went down to the employment office on March 1st, if I'd have taken employment then, there's a high probability that I would have been assigned to an area that was a lot worse than where I worked. And I wasn't really that in mind to go where it was dangerous and hot and icky, for lack of a better term. And I was actually going to have a disclaimer that when my homestake brain kicks in, and if everybody knows the culture of homestake, there was a lot of foul language. And I hope I don't fall into that tonight. So I apologize if I do, but the 4850 was a good level. And of course, when we re-entered with the science, that's the main level that we wanted to get to reopen. But I had some really good experiences and learnings from working on the 4850 and stuff. I did cover the rest of the underground work when I was working on hydraulic equipment and stuff, but fair question, Bryce, thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question. I like that question. I have to say the 4850 was, because of all of the intersections of all the shafts and winzes, but also two other ones come to mind, although every one of them, it's like, who's your favorite person here, you know? The mine has a personality. Each level has a personality. The mine is like a living organism. It breathes. It has power. It has ailments. It's aging. And I've always felt that way. I think the level that comes to mind next is probably the 7,400-foot level. It was a major intersection level as well. It had one of the biggest shops underground, all as big as this building is. That's how big the shop was. This building, when I look at it, same height, same width, same length, with an overhead trolley crane, and that's where all the equipment was brought down for that deep level mining from really from the 6950 all the way down to the 8000. That was the central point for assembling the equipment, maintaining the equipment, fueling. It was the gathering place for all the crews. That's where they went, and then they got on diesel-powered equipment and went to their various mining locations. It also had the intersection of number 6 winds, number 7 winds, and number 4 winds. It went all the way over to 4 winds. So it was as big as the 7,400 and fascinating place. Someday, maybe Pam, I'll show the Christmas party on the 7,400. I still have that vision. And Gerald, I won't show it. I won't show it.
What happens in Homestake stays in Homestake.
Yeah.
That's very good. Very good. What other questions do you have out there? We've got just a little time left. A little show and tell of what we have on the table. Maybe with the time we have, you want to pick one of your favorite things on the table, gentlemen? There's some, and we can come up here afterwards too and keep that discussion going. But maybe we'll just ask for one thing right now, then afterwards we can come up and have a little more talk.
Well, that's a tough question. One of my favorite things. I will say that
Just watch
The interference.
I have to say this is my favorite thing. This is my daughter and I on the 4850 level. Jennifer worked for Homestake for a while. She was a nurse in Rapid City and decided that she might want to try something different. She came up and worked at the Homestake Mine site in the safety department, hoping to become the occupational nurse. Well, for SURF, it just wasn't mature enough yet to handle that. So she went back to working for Dr. Diamond for over 25 years. She passed away 2 years ago from pancreatic cancer. And one of the things she said to me, and it's kind of the same thing I hear from all of the past miners, don't forget me, Dad. And so whenever I do any kind of speech, I kind of bring this picture because that's her and I on the 4850. So that's my favorite thing, Mike. But right there with it is this gold hard hat. This is the hard hat that I wore
Sorry.
as part of the Homestake Mine rescue team in the 1980s, the best in class by far in the world. We had the gold and silver team, and we were national champions. We were champions at district tournaments all over the United States in that decade. Some of the best miners and best mine rescue people in the world. And I was their technical apparatus technician and part of both teams. I helped maintain and make ready all of the breathing apparatuses and other equipment that they used. And very formative, very important part of my career and my life. So this gold hard hat is pretty important to me. And I have two other hard hats. I have a hard hat that I wore as a borehole operator, and then my hard hat that I had when I was with SURF and the emergency response team. I kept up with that, and on my final retirement, Woody said, yeah, keep the hat. So hats off to all of you.
On the far end of the table, you'll see something strange sitting there. And I retired last April, and the employees at SURF, the Ross hoist room has been upgraded to modern technology. And if anybody had seen how the hoists operate, they had a big deck where the hoist operator sat in a big chair, and he controlled the elevator or the hoist from that spot. When I retired, they gave me that put together as a thank you for my years, but it's really special to me. It's got the 2 foot pads where you'd put your feet while you're operating, and then the center rod sticking up is the throttle and direction control for the Ross hoist. It's either the cage or the oar hoist, and then it's got a couple of plaques on it. But I've got a couple other things there that were made for diamond drilling, and I'm not sure. Zion Hansen suggested what it could be, but I made those when I was a machinist, and I can't believe that I actually did it. Somebody must have been really watching what I did, because I've never been able to make things that detailed and stuff, so pretty proud of that. So
That's a great one. Thank you. We are just close to the end of our evening tonight. So thank you for Dan. Again, this has been a record turnout, and the hour went by very quickly, didn't it? Too fast and fast. So we will close it up here because we're just right at about 7 o'clock. Let's give one more round of applause to these gentlemen for their time.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming out. Our next Deep Talks next month is going to be at the Homestake Opera House. We're going to have a showing of a film called Particle Fever. It's going to be excellent. There's a few other things coming up on March 10th. Netta Bacall, the wife of the late John Bacall, will be speaking in Rapid City to launch the John Bacall Colloquium. So we hope you can all come out for that too. But the night doesn't have to be over yet because these two have a lot more stories.
I'd like to share
come on up
also.
and ask questions. Oh, of course, we have one.
These guys have talked about a lot of things that maybe you guys don't know anything about. So go to the mining museum. On the lower level, you can be in the mine. And that was built by the Homestake people. The Homestake supervisors did the main part of the bottom layer.
Thank you so much. We can continue to celebrate that history at the Mining Museum. Bravo. Thank you.
There, as Mike had said, talk to your Homestake veterans and stuff. And Aaron Woodward, who was employed by the Sanford lab, produced a book last year called The Price of Gold. And there's many other employees that have offered some of their stories. Rick is a part, Tom had a part. But if you're interested in this book, the Visitor Center does not have any on hand, but Aaron sent a page there where if you're interested in buying this book, you can, there's a scan point on there so you can order the book yourself. We also have quite a few of the books by Steve Mitchell that he put out last year. Excellent book to learn more about Homestake. It's got a lot of detail in it that's real good reading. So thank you again for coming. It's been fun.
Thank you all for coming out. Have a great evening. Safe travels.